So, Volibear is broken enough that he can kill you with 0 damage items. That's fun. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. My name is Zyrene, and as always, I'm here with another ProGuides Korean builds video. This time, we're going to be talking about all the new builds that have surfaced as of patch 10.13. We've got builds for every single role, so make sure you stay tuned. By the way, I want you guys to know that we're doing a giveaway for 7 annual ProGuides subscriptions and a ton of ProGuides points. To have a chance at winning this prize, all you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and head over to our giveaways section in our Discord. It just takes a few clicks and you're all set. Finally, for our question of the day, what champion's merch would you wear? Or maybe you already wear it. I want to know that too. Personally, I'd wear anything that's got the True Damage branding on it, but I'd go with something True Damage Echo related. I absolutely love the aesthetic of that skin line and wouldn't feel any shame repping them. With that said, let's begin with those builds. Starting with the top lane, we've got a new Volibear build, and it's honestly something else. Full tank Volibear with 0 damage items is starting to take off. Apparently this is what it's come to, and I'm scratching my head a bit here. Now before we even get into it, this build does involve a Sterix gauge, but it's bought very late into the build. Most games won't let you get that far, and the only reason you're building it to begin with is because you're stacking a ton of health before purchasing one. The reason this build works is that Volibear is able to deal a ton of damage through runes and base damage. For the runes, you're going to run Grasp of the Undying, Shield Bash, Second Wind, Overgrowth, Biscuit Delivery, and Cosmic Insight. Grasp of the Undying deals more damage as you gain more health, and that's exactly what this build does. You build a ton of it, and you're going to also run Overgrowth, so you get the idea here. Shield Bash synergizes ridiculously well with Volibear's E, which scales off of health. It's quite intricate and actually a really clever build, as you really milk the value out of every single point of health that you purchase. For items, build a Frozen Heart, Ninja Tabi, Spirit Visage, Warmog's Armor, Sterix Gauge, and finally a Gargoyle Stoneplate. This build allows you to hit 40% cooldown reduction, and when factoring in Cosmic Insight, you strike gold by hitting 45%, and as a result, your W's cooldown drops all the way down to 2.75 seconds. What's a ProGuides video if we don't drop the words massive or huge? Well, honestly speaking, a 2.75 second cooldown is actually quite ludicrous. Volibear is able to deal a ton of damage with it and also heals a ton as well. The next build we want to talk about in the top lane is Syndra Top. We actually have a video that covers this new build in depth because it was actually popularized by none other than the top laner, The Shy. Once again, this superstar top laner has broken the meta and changed the face of the top lane. There's a reason why Syndra Top is so powerful, but some of the most notable things are that she's a great draft mix-up as well as a powerful lane bully. If you want to learn more about her, you guys can check out that video. We made it just for you. For runes, take Arcane Comet or Phase Rush, Monoflow Band, Transcendence, Absolute Focus, Scorch, and then Biscuit Delivery with Cosmic Insight. For the items, build a pair of Sorcerer's Shoes, Luden's Echo, Rabadon's Deathcap, Zhonya's Hourglass, Void Staff, and a Morellonomicon. Be adaptable with this build. You're playing a mage in a lane that's inhabited by bruisers. If you need them, a pair of Ninja Tabi are an appropriate replacement for the Sorcerer's Shoes. And you can even go the extra mile by rushing a Seeker's Arm Guard if you're having a hard time. Also feel free to replace the Luden's Echo with a Hextech GLP based on your own preference. Finally, we just want to make a quick reminder to you guys that Tank Fiddlesticks is starting to pop off. He's even seeing play in pro games, so you can't take this build for granted. He's incredibly tanky, forces your opponents to build grievous wounds, and still deals a decent amount of damage. As a quick reminder, his runes are Aftershock, Demolish, Conditioning, Revitalize with Monoflow Band, and Transcendence. His items are Frozen Heart, Spirit Visage, Ninja Tabi, Zhonya's Hourglass, Randuin's Omen, and a Void Staff. We've already talked about this build in our previous Korean builds videos, so we'll save you guys the in-depth explanation and move on to the jungle. But of course, we're going to put those builds up on the screen one last time so you guys can have a final look at them. All right, with that said, let's keep moving forward. For our first jungle build, we're going to talk about Omni Stone Echo. This build is one that's often used by Kanavi, currently a jungler in the LPL. The biggest advantage of playing Omni Stone Echo is that it's possible to activate 2 keystones over the course of a fight. Normally, if you're running Electrocute, for example, it's just a one and done deal. You activate it and you're out of gas. However, in cases where you manage to roll the Electrocute keystone out of the hat, you get to basically run Electrocute plus whatever the RNG gods give you several seconds later. Echo uses a plethora of keystones quite well, most notably the ones in the Domination tree. Electrocute, Dark Harvest, Hail of Blades, and Predator are definitely far from unheard of on Echo. For the runes, you run Omni Stone, Magical Footwear, Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, Eyeball Collection, and Ravenous Hunter. One underrated strength of this build is that you're able to run the Inspiration Tree as your primary one. Thus, you're able to access 3 accessory runes there. Magical Footwear provides free value, Futures Market allows you to hit item spikes more reliably, and Cosmic Insight is a rune that's good on basically every champion in the entire game. For items, build Runic Echoes, Hextech Proto Belt, Sorcerer's Shoes, Lichbane, Rabadon's Death Cap, and a Morellonomicon. The next build we want to talk about is one for Kayn. Although we are uncertain of the origin of this build, one thing is certain. A ton of Korean Kayn mains are using this build right now. By rushing a Tiamat, Kayn players are able to take the thing Kayn is best at and do it even better. Kayn already clears the jungle quickly, but with a Tiamat rush, he absolutely devours it. There's no such thing as too much clear speed, or clearing the jungle too quickly, because any extra downtime you end up with is time you can spend ganking for your laners or counter jungling. For the runes, you'll run Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Nimbus Cloak, and Gathering Storm. For items, you'll build a Tiamat first, then Warrior Enchant, with Boots of Swiftness, Duskblade of Drakthar, Edge of Night, and Yomu's Ghostblade. Towards the end of the build, you can upgrade the Tiamat into a Ravenous Hydra to wrap up the build. Especially when you're playing Blue Kayn, this adds some nice flavor to his gameplay. Tiamat provides some extra burst damage with its active effect, while also increasing his early to mid-game clear speed. For our next jungle build, let's talk about Spellbook Fiddlesticks. Although Aftershock has made its return for tank Fiddlesticks, and Electrocute has been the most dominant keystone choice for most Fiddlesticks players, Unsealed Spellbook Fiddlesticks has risen up as a contender. Although you end up sacrificing some burst damage, you gain a ton of versatility by running Unsealed Spellbook instead. If you're okay with it, you can also switch to Summoner Ignite every once in a while to compensate that lost Electrocute damage. By running Unsealed Spellbook in Electrocute's place, you're able to access other summoner spells like Summoner Ghost, Heal, Exhaust, and even Barrier. This means that you'll always have an extra summoner spell handy, even if you had to burn Flash to either save yourself or secure a kill somewhere. In terms of runes, you'll want to run Unsealed Spellbook, Perfect Timing, Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, Nimbus Cloak, and Transcendence. Next, for the items, you want to build a Runic Echoes with Sorcerer's Shoes, Leandri's Torment, Zhonya's Hourglass, Void Staff, and Rabadon's Death Cap. The items are pretty standard ones, but since you're taking the Inspiration Tree, you can at least take advantage of the various secondary runes in the tree. All junglers benefit quite heavily from Futures Market, as it ensures that they can always have enough money for components or upgrades when they return to base. Although AP Nunu received a massive buff this patch, we've got a build for you guys that actually started emerging towards the end of last patch, and that's Phase Rush Nunu, and it's something that players have been giving a try. The success of this build stems from the simple fact that activating Phase Rush practically guarantees that Nunu lands his E on his main target, or possibly several enemies simultaneously. While enemies can normally attempt to burn cooldowns to escape after getting hit by Nunu's big snowball, Phase Rush's burst of movement speed can turn most attempts at breaking away into futile ones. Even if you're burning Summoner Spell Flash, it won't create enough space to escape if Nunu is able to activate his Phase Rush. Another highly underrated part of the build is the fact that you're able to run both the Sorcery and Domination trees. Real quick, let's talk about the runes and items though. For runes, you'll run Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Gathering Storm, Eyeball Collection, and Relentless Hunter. Running Eyeball Collection and Gathering Storm are especially good on this patch. Even without building any AP, you'll be able to passively gain some as the game progresses. These AP ratio buffs were actually pretty big, especially because Nunu's ultimate now has a pretty decent AP ratio contributing towards the shield. Next, for items, you'll build a Cinderhulk, Mercury Treads, Deadman's Plate, Spirit Visage, Warmog's Armor, and a Gargoyle Stoneplate. Alright, that wraps up our jungle build, so make sure to take a look at the screen one last time for a recap. Next, let's head over to the mid lane. In spite of the nerfs to Conqueror, one of the newest trends in solo queue builds we've seen is Conqueror Qiyana. Similarly to Talon and Zed, Qiyana does have some pretty crazy AD ratios. Thus, she's able to take advantage of Conqueror and the immense amount of adaptive force it provides at all stages of the game. Taking Conqueror gives Qiyana more power in extended trades, especially taking into consideration the insane amount of sustain it provides. Unfortunately, Conqueror was nerfed this patch. In spite of this, Qiyana has some of the highest AD ratios in the game, and taking the Keystone on her is still a justifiable alternative to Electrocute based on your playstyle. For runes, you'll want to run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Sudden Impact, and Ravenous Hunter. Ravenous Hunter is probably the easiest rune to overlook here. While we encourage you guys to be adaptable, not taking it can actually be a pretty big mistake. Aside from Conqueror, you'll be lacking sustain, and Ravenous Hunter will allow you to stay in lane a little longer. Over the course of the laning phase, the spell vamp healing can really add up and make the difference between winning and losing early fights. The items are quite standard. You'll build a Duskblade of Drakthar, Boots of Mobility, Yomu's Ghostblade, Edge of Night, Umbral Glaive, and Immortal Reminder. Our next mid lane build is Conqueror Echo Mid. Surprisingly, this build is actually much less affected by the Conqueror nerfs. In spite of Echo's longer cooldowns, there is a workaround for Conqueror's long ramp up. This comes from his build. So let's talk about runes and items first this time. Your items are Mercury Treads, Hextech Proto Belt, Nashor's Tooth, Rabadon's Deathcap, Zhonya's Hourglass, and Void Staff are the items that you'll be looking at. The key component here is the Nashor's Tooth, as this item will allow Echo players to easily utilize Conqueror during team fights. Conqueror provides a ton of ability power, which further increases the bonus damage Nashor's Tooth provides. For runes, run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Last Stand, Bone Plating, and Unflinching. This build that we threw up provides an immense amount of tenacity, so against teams with almost no crowd control, make some appropriate swaps. Trade Legend Tenacity for Legend Alacrity, and Unflinching for whatever else you prefer. And of course, Mercury Treads for Sorcerer's Shoes or Ninja Tabi. Alright, that's it for the mid lane build, so we're throwing those builds up one last time on the screen for you guys. Take a look, save them, do what you need to do. Next is the bottom lane. Our bottom lane build for this patch is Spellbook Veigar. Veigar is definitely one of those champions that doesn't really have a go-to keystone. While ones like Comet or Electrocute do work, none of them really feel right. Instead, running Unsealed Spellbook guarantees some extra power by providing extra summoner spells. These are a lot easier to make use of, and Unsealed Spellbook does a pretty good job of diversifying Veigar's playstyle. If he wants to run heal, he's able to do so, to keep himself as well as his lane partner safe. Teleport is a staple on Veigar, and Unsealed Spellbook allows him to access it even without actually locking it in during Champion Select. Veigar bottom thrives off the fact that he's able to safely farm from a distance with his abilities and gradually scale up. In comparison to the mid lane, there aren't nearly as many assassins in the bottom lane, and most bot laners are content just farming it out. For runes, run Unsealed Spellbook, Magical Footwear, Minion Dematerializer, Cosmic Insight, Presence of Mind, and Legend Tenacity. For items, you want to build a Hextech GLP, Sorcerer's Shoes, Zhonya's Hourglass, Morellonomicon, Rabadon's Deathcap, and Void Staff. That's going to do it for our bottom lane build, so here's a quick recap of that one as we transition into support to wrap things up. Alright, so you know how Riot has been releasing stupid OP champions that can be played anywhere? It's not just me who thinks that, right? Well, maybe you will too if I told you Wukong support is a thing now. Unlike set support, Wukong support doesn't make a major change to his build. He just builds a support item, then builds his normal ones, which honestly sounds pretty troll to me. Turns out, he's actually just that broken. Especially if you're able to run Fasting Senna to funnel Wukong. He has plenty of opportunities to pop off. Even without it, he's still ridiculously overtuned and still capable of carrying games. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Demolish, and Bone Plating. For the items, you want to build Pauldrons of White Rock, Black Cleaver, Mercury Treads, Executioner's Calling, Death's Dance, and Guardian Angel. As a support, you're running on a tighter budget, so do note that you'll probably only finish a couple of items. And the fact that you're playing support, at least do your team a favor by investing in an Executioner's Calling if they need it. It's a cheap buy that'll at least make you come off as more support-like to your teammates, so you can avoid that report. Kicking off supports, let's talk about Phase Rush Galio. Ever since the ability to flash while charging W was removed, players have begun making use of movement speed buffs in order to land Galio's taunt. We've seen things like Nimbus Cloak and Unsealed Spellbook come into play, but yet another option is to run Phase Rush. In cases where you're able to land your E, you can follow it up with a quick Q and basic attack to immediately gain an incredible burst of movement speed. Remember that Phase Rush was buffed for melee champions some patches back, and it grants 40 to 60% bonus movement speed. This is absolutely insane for Galio, as that's more than enough for him to run his opponents down and ensure that he can land a fully charged W on them. For runes, you want to run Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Water Walking, Hextech Flash Traption, and Minion Dematerializer. For the items, build Bulwark of the Mountain, Mercury Treads, Gargoyle Stoneplate, Zeke's Convergence, Knight's Vow, and Locket of the Iron Solari. With this build, you're not abandoning the Nimbus Cloak synergy either. You're still able to use Nimbus Cloak whenever you have your summoner spells available, or combine it with Hextech Flash Traption to catch your opponents off guard. Ultimately, this build does sacrifice some damage and tankiness, but in return, you're going to have a much easier time landing follow-up taunts onto your main target, or even several enemies at once. For our final build of this video, we want to talk about Phase Rush Gragas. This is a little riskier to run, but can carry games quite hard if you manage to get it rolling. The build might seem a bit weird, so let's talk about the runes and items first. For runes, you want to run Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Water Walking, and then Magical Footwear with Cosmic Insight. While you'll want to end on completed items like Zeke's Herald, give this item opener a try. Start off with a Relic Shield, and then buy Ionian Boots, Glacial Shroud, Kindle Gem, and Fiendish Codex. Shorter games will be over by the time you finish these items, but essentially you're trying to rush 40% cooldown reduction. With Cosmic Insight, that becomes 45%, and you're basically a drunken playmaking machine at that point. Gragas' ultimate will basically be up for every play you want to make, and the fact that support Gragas maxes E means that landing it will put it on a 3.6 second cooldown. And for one of those seconds, if you hit somebody, your opponent is stunned. Should games go longer, you'll want to finish these items off, completing ones like Knight's Vow, Zonia's Hourglass, and even Locket of the Iron Solari. You can even build AP items like Hextech Protobelt if that's what things come to. Phase Rush Gragas is extremely oppressive while ahead. After landing a combo, he can either back away immediately, or instead chase his opponents down for a follow-up E because of the short cooldown it has later into the game. Alright, that's it for our support builds, so take one final look at the screen for a recap of those. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting our channel. We appreciate it and love you guys. That's it for Korean builds this patch, and if you want more content like this, I encourage you to subscribe and also check out ProGuides.com, where we have coaches and even live classes to help you guys improve. Until next time though, best of luck on the Rift Summoners.